Welcome back to College Football Show, Week 4 College Football slate. It's pretty crazy how fast college football's been going this year. Already in Week 4. Back again, Ben Wulfy. Last week didn't go so well,
Really bad.
but I ended up right around 500. I know you kind of struggled a little bit, but
Yeah,
it's okay.
this first week.
New week.
Yeah.
Clean slate.
I mean, it's almost just like bury the ball.
Yeah,
Just
no.
bury the ball.
Yep.
Pretend it like never happened.
That's
At least
totally fine.
I hit my lock though.
Yeah, Oklahoma really let me down on that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, before the game, Josh Ewing told me, he's like, oh yeah, this Nebraska Oklahoma game, it's a big rivalry game, and I think Scott Frost is going to understand the rivalry while Lincoln Riley won't as much. And I was like sitting there and I was like, fuck me, like.
That makes some sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll just try and reason it into that. The Michigan State game was really bad. Miami's just a bad football team.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be very good this year.
I mean, I was hoping they were going to turn it up against a good Michigan State team. And Michigan State, they've had some really, really, really good wins this year, but they brought it towards the end of the fourth. Like Miami, they had nothing for Michigan State at that point.
Yeah. All right, so if you watched the NFL show I just did with Ronan, we kind of did a different format this week where we're going to pick about, I think we have 15 games. We're just going to talk about those in depth, and then I'll run through my card for the college football. I'll tell you guys now it's a really big card this week. There's a lot of games I like, so it'll be a pretty big card. We'll try to run through it fairly fast, keep it around 20, 30 minutes, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
So going right into it, this Friday, got Wake Forest at Virginia. Virginia's 4.5-point favorites, over/under 68.5. For me personally, I think everyone in the country is on Wake Forest. They've had a couple good wins this year. Their defense looks really good. Virginia, though, I kind of like in this spot at home Friday night under the lights.
They're not a bad team.
Not a bad team. They got blown out by North Carolina last week, but I've been on North Carolina all year, and I think North Carolina's a good team. So I don't buy in too much to that. I think home team, close game, take that 4.5. Would be my pick on that one.
You're taking Virginia.
Virginia 4.5, yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking Virginia again. I mean, I was on Virginia last week. I'm hoping they're just gonna pay out for me this week. I mean, they're your stereotypical ACC team. There's really not much to say outside of that. I know Wake Forest has looked really, really good this year. They really brought up Florida State.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think this is going to be like really, really, really like tell-all game for Virginia and Wake Forest because they're kind of on similar playing fields.
Yeah. Next game also happening on Friday night. It's Liberty at Syracuse. Liberty is 6.5-point favorites, over under 52.5. I love Liberty here. I've been on them all year as well. Covered for me again last week. Just had a really explosive offense. I don't think Syracuse is very good. Never really are.
Mm-hmm.
Their win total coming into the year was 1.5. So I don't know. They kept it close to Rutgers, who's looking pretty good, but I think Liberty covers pretty easily.
Yeah, I agree. Liberty, Hugh Freeze has really brought like a really strong team.
He's always going to be good under Hugh Freeze. That's what he does.
Yeah, I like this bet a lot.
Going into Notre Dame versus Wisconsin. It's a neutral site game. 6.5-point favorites for Wisconsin, over under 46.5. And I just don't understand 6.5 when Wisconsin hasn't really beat anyone good this year. Also, their offense hasn't looked good to start the year at all. I think people are kind of buying into that Florida State game a little bit too much. I think Notre Dame had a pretty good control of the game, and then Florida State kind of brought it back late. I don't think – and then last week, covering against Purdue, I think 27-13 was final score. Notre Dame's looked good last week. Purdue's not a terrible team. They're always going to be like average Big Ten team. So 6.5 is a lot of points. I could definitely see Wisconsin winning, but I think they're going to stay within that 6.5. Also, Jack Cohn revenge game, going back, play Wisconsin. I mean, I might play. I'm for sure it's going to give him a little extra juice going into the game. I mean, it'll play a small factor. I'm not saying it's going to be a major factor. But also, another thing, like over under 46.5. So the books are thinking it's going to be a low scoring game. Low scoring game, 6.5 points. That's a lot. That's a big spread to cover in a low scoring game. So I definitely think plus 6.5 is the move here.
I actually think this game is going to be pretty high scoring. Wisconsin's defense, their only test all season has been Penn State, and they came out flat. But that's a week 0 game. I know everybody's on Notre Dame. Well, okay.
Public money's been on Wisconsin.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I like Wisconsin a lot too in this pick, just because Notre Dame there hasn't been a game this year where they've looked good. They haven't played anybody. They haven't looked good. Even watching that Purdue game, I know when we were watching College Pick'em, they handled Purdue pretty well. Watching that game, you remove I think they had 3 20-yard plus runs that game. You remove those runs, those big plays, that's a very, very, very different ball game. And I don't know, Notre Dame's defense I think is pretty brutal this year.
You're suspect.
So I'm very, very I really, really, really want to take Wisconsin here, but it's I kind of feel like I have to take Notre Dame in this situation. But fuck it, I'm gonna take Wisconsin.
6.5, special pick. Okay. Moving on, LSU at Mississippi State. LSU is 2.5 point favorites. Over under 56.5. Mississippi State coming off that tough loss. I don't know if you saw that play with the kickoff.
I didn't see the play.
I think it was a punt. It was a punt. Basically, what happened is the guy for Mississippi State touched it, but it wasn't considered a touchback. He just didn't grab it and just touched it.
And he scooped it up and ran it. Yeah.
If you're able to advance on that, you can't go backwards.
That was a smart play by them.
Very smart play by Memphis. Tough loss for Mississippi State. Coming back home, they have a really good home field advantage there. LSU lost to UCLA. I don't think UCLA is very good, personally.
I mean, I think they're good for a Pac-12 team, but
What do you think?
well, I think their loss. I think their loss this year isn't as bad as people think it is. I think Fresno State's actually
pretty good. I just don't think UCLA is.
I don't think they're as good. I don't think they're that Pac-12 team that's going to come out.
And LSU got dominated by them, so I don't think people still. A lot of the public is going to be on LSU just because people still see them as the national championship team from 2 years ago, but they're not that team. They're not very good. For whatever reason, their recruits just aren't playing very well. The defense is getting shredded. Offense isn't very good. Mississippi State's actually a solid team, so I do like Mississippi State at home, especially at plus 2.5. It kind of tells you that the book sees it as a kind of a toss-up when that spread's so close. So I just love that home team in that situation.
What do you think about Memphis?
I honestly haven't watched Memphis too much this year, so
I only watched that Mississippi State game. I mean, they looked good, and I know Memphis, they have a decent football program. But I'm writing Mississippi State too as well. I haven't been impressed with LSU at all at any point this year. I don't know. You take away that one Mississippi, you take that one loss against Memphis. I think Mississippi State's actually going to be looking really good this year.
Yeah. Moving on, Texas Tech at Texas. Texas is 8.5 point favorites. Over under 68.5. I got 60.5. Yeah, 60.5. I have 2 plays in this game. Love the over. I just see a shootout. This is a classic shootout game. I think it's a shootout every year they play this one.
Big 12.
Big 12. I mean, it is Big 12. I think Sark, new coach of Texas, is going to be offensive oriented. Same Texas Tech. Texas Tech's always a shootout team. I also love the plus 8.5 here for Texas Tech. They had a big win week 1 against Houston, and then last week destroyed FIU, I believe. Covered pretty handily. So I love Texas Tech plus 8.5. It's a shootout. Last team with the ball wins, and when it's plus 8.5, I mean, I like them to stay within the number and potentially even money line. I think their quarterback's really good. their offense is always going to be electric. Texas defense isn't very good.
He's a transfer, right?
Yep, transfer.
Coming from Oregon.
Yeah.
I could be totally wrong. I agree with you though. I love the 8.5 spread. I really like Texas Tech here. I've never liked Texas when it comes to betting. I mean, they're always these past couple of years, they've just been a 7-5, 8-4 team. So I feel like for Texas Tech to cover here, I feel like that's going to be pretty. I feel like they're going to be able to handle that.
Moving on to rivalry game down in Texas, staying in Texas, we'll go SMU at TCU. TCU's 9.5-point favorites, over under 65.5. I do not understand why the spread is at 9.5 at all.
I'm seeing 8.5 online, but
8.5, 9.5, right around there. I think SMU's offense is really good this year with their quarterback. I can't remember his name, but he's really good. It's a rivalry game. It's two teams. It's always a close game. It's usually a shootout in this one. 9.5 or 8.5, depending on what you get it at. I think either one of them is pretty good. I could also see money line SMU. So again, same thing with the last game. 8.5 is just too many points. I like SMU, and a lot of these SMU and TCU get a lot of the same recruits. So it's like these kids know each other. They're all from the same areas. Yeah, I love that pick a lot. SMU plus 9.5. Almost made it my lock, but
yeah. The only way I see SMU not covering this game is it's fourth quarter. SMU is down by a touchdown, maybe 3 points, and then just down the stretch, TCU makes a run and scores 14 points and finishes the game at a 14.5 or 17 spread. I also agree with you. SMU has a lights out offense. I know TCU and going into this year was supposed to be pretty exciting, but I have not been impressed with them at all.
No, and I think I saw a stat at home. Gary Patterson's 3 of his last 7 against the spread as a favorite.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of play down their competition. I was on them, I believe it was week 2. They played Cal at home. And they were losing most of the game. They ended up winning by 2, saving the money line. But they were 9.5-point favorites, and Cal should have won that game. So
I don't even understand why this game is why they would even be considered playing down to SMU's standard at 8.5. I feel like the spread should just be a lot less because I feel like SMU has a really solid program.
I would have thought 5.5 would have made more sense here. Plus 8.5. Feel pretty safe about that one. Texas A&M versus Arkansas is another neutral site game this week. Texas A&M is 4.5-point favorites. Over under is 47.5. A lot of the public money on this one is on Arkansas, actually.
Mm-hmm.
People remember that Texas win.
They also covered against Georgia State.
Yep. So they've looked pretty good this year. People forget Texas A&M's defense is next level. Jimbo Fisher's done a really good job rebuilding that program.
Who's their quarterback? They've had no problems.
Yeah, no, they just dismantled who they played last week. It was some team they should be.
I picked Texas A&M last week, so that was one of my few wins.
No, I think they're really good. A lot of the people are on Arkansas, and I think that's why this line kind of moved down. It was 6.5, it's down to 5.5 now. Or no, 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 4.5. I just love Texas A&M. Their defense. I don't think Arkansas. A couple offensive linemen are actually kind of questionable for them this week,
mm-hmm.
So that's going to be big against the Texas A&M's defense. I see a low-scoring game. I think Texas A&M could beat them by double digits.
I agree.
I don't think that Arkansas-Texas game, everyone's got really excited about Arkansas really fast,
mm-hmm.
but I don't think Texas is where they usually are supposed to be yet. It's Sark's first year. He's going to bring in a new team.
They weren't impressive last year.
I think Texas A&M's the play here, 4.5.
I agree. Texas A&M. I told you even on last week's show that I'm in love with Texas A&M. I think I've thrown 3 bets on them this year, and I think they've covered on all 3 bets.
Yeah.
I mean,
they've been good. The one game they had, they played Colorado and only won 10-7. I remember that one.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think I mean, Jimmo Fisher's kind of proved himself as being like, yeah, no, I'm still a legit college football coach. So I really like Arkansas too. They looked really good against Georgia State last week, even though Georgia State's really, really, really bad.
They didn't play last year. Georgia State did.
Oh, they didn't. I don't know that. But yeah, no, I'm gonna ride with Texas A&M as well.
Louisville at Florida State. Louisville is 1.5 point favorites, over under 61.5. Florida State's just so bad. I don't see any way in the world where I could take them and feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to take Louisville 1.5. I don't think they're very good either. They got blown out by Ole Miss, who I think is actually pretty good this year.
Yeah,
Lane Kiffin's a good coach. He brought in Matt Corral is really good too, their quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of lesser of two evils with these two teams, and I think Louisville is slightly better. I think they're middle of the pack ACC, and Florida State's bottom of the pack ACC.
I could definitely see this as being like Mike Norvell's like last hurrah at Florida State. But no, I mean Florida State. I mean they're close to being one of the worst teams in FBS football right now.
They lost to Jacksonville State.
Yeah,
at home.
that Notre Dame game is out. That Notre Dame game there is out there. But I'm a big Notre Dame fan. I'm not as high on Notre Dame this year as everybody else. But I've actually been paying decent attention to Louisville. They had a good win against was it UCF? I believe.
It beat UCF last week.
Yep. That was a good win. So I think they've actually kind of proved themselves to be like, hey, you know, we're not a bad football, like not a bad football team. But I like Louisville too as well.
Yep. Moving on, Iowa State at Baylor. Iowa State is 6.5 point favorites, over under 46.5. Both Iowa State students, so it's kind of a hard game to pick. I do like Iowa State here at 6.5. Baylor's not very good. They haven't been good since Matt Rule left. Last year they were really bad. This year they've shown to be a little bit better, but their best wins against Kansas. They haven't played anyone yet, so it's kind of hard to tell. I think Iowa State needed a game to get right, and UNLV was that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to be clicking on all cylinders coming into this game. I don't believe in Baylor. I think they'll be one of the worst teams in the Big 12 this year. They're a couple of years out from being a good team again if Dave Aranda can get that team going again. So 6.5 under a touchdown. I do think Iowa State will cover. I mean, no way in hell I was going to pick Baylor to cover. So,
I mean, that was actually my first thought was I didn't know too much about Baylor. I know they beat Kansas. Do you remember of how much they beat Kansas by?
I believe it's 45. I'm looking up their schedule right now, but I'm pretty sure it's 45-7.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, well Baylor looks pretty good this year, but I kind of just like sat down and thought about it last night. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna ride with Iowa State.
So they played Texas State week 1 and beat them 29-20. So close game there. Beat Texas Southern 66-7 and Kansas 45-7. So they really.
They're blowing people out though.
Except for
Texas,
week 1.
Yeah, but that's you can always throw that game away.
Well, I don't know if you just throw it away, but yeah.
State rivalry.
We'll see what Baylor looks like after this week. We'll see what kind of season they're going to have, but I do like Iowa State to cover. So.
I like Iowa State too as well. Their passing attack looked a lot better. As long with their rushing attack too.
As long as we can get a good combo of that, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Moving on, Clemson is at North Carolina State. Clemson is minus 10.5, over under 48.5. I love North Carolina State plus 10.5. I feel like this is one of those. It's kind of a rivalry game in the ACC because it's always going to be close. The games were close even when Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback and they had Travis Etienne and those dogs on defense. And they're making national championships every year. I don't think they're even close to like a national or a college football playoff team this year. Their offensive line hasn't looked good. Their defense is being not very good. They squeaked out a win last week against Georgia Tech, who might be one of the worst teams in the ACC. I don't see 10.5 on the road. I love North Carolina State here. I think that their defense is really good. They had a tough loss to. Let me look it up. They had a tough loss last week. I think it's a good bounce back spot. I could even see them winning money line. They lost 2 weeks ago at Mississippi State in a tough game. Destroyed Furman in South Florida, so not great, best opponents, but I could see them beating Clemson. This could be like the Super Bowl game this year, beating a top 10 team at home. I really like NC State.
Yeah, I mean, NC State, like we even talked about last week, them playing really good down the stretch. I feel like that's really, really, really coming true this year. Clemson didn't look good last week against Georgia Tech. I know they had a rain delay halfway through the game, so I do feel like that played a factor for Georgia Tech covering. But I still really like NC State, and I might just be going with my heart here. But yeah, NC State.
Rutgers at Michigan. Michigan's getting giving up 20.5 points. Over/under is at 49.5. So Michigan's a little confusing. They have looked like the best team in college football the first 3 weeks, but they also haven't played anyone.
Yeah.
They did beat Western Michigan handily, who I do like a lot as one of the best teams in Group of 5. Beat Washington handily, but Washington lost to Montana. They're not very good this year either.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Michigan's first big test. Rutgers has definitely improved under Greg Schiano.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that team playing pretty well. 20.5 is so many points, especially in the Big Ten game. I believe the over/under's 49.5. So you're basically saying that you guys score 21 points and stay under 50. That's a big ask. I don't think Rutgers is going to win by any means. I think Michigan beats them handily, 10 points, 14 points, but I don't think 20.5 makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask okay, Michigan, Rutgers last year, do you think Michigan's going to cover 20 points?
No, Michigan's terrible.
Right, exactly. So that's I think Michigan has improved a lot from last year, and I think Harbaugh has kind of proved himself to be like Michigan's guy. I know everybody's saying Harbaugh is a terrible coach. I really don't think he's that bad. But I still like Rutgers. Greg Schiano, awesome coach. Do you remember the quarterback who got injured, who's coming back this year? Who came back this year? He's playing good.
Can't say I do.
Okay. Anyways, I like Rutgers to cover here too. I don't know why the spread is so large, but it is what it is.
Michigan just 63-3 last week. They're killing teams. Moving on to Kansas State, Oklahoma State. If you guys follow me on Twitter, you saw me tweet out it's the 14-year anniversary of the Mike Gundy I'm a Man press conference. God, I wasn't originally going to pick this game, but after seeing that, I had to pick this game. I believe I have the Kansas State plus 6.5. Oklahoma State hasn't looked very good this year so far through 3 weeks. Kansas State had a big win week on Stanford. Last week they were underdogs against Nevada. They were either underdogs or it was a 2.5 point spread, and they actually blew out Nevada, even losing their quarterback. So I think their defense is playing really well. Their backup Keenan's played really well last week. 6.5. I don't love 6.5 there. I think they'll stay within that, so I'll take Kansas State with the points.
So you're not going to Oklahoma State.
I really wanted to, but I don't trust Oklahoma State this year.
Well, I'm a man, so I'm going to go with Oklahoma State.
I'd almost rather take Oklahoma State and be wrong.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's a good way of looking at it. I don't like Oklahoma State either. They haven't looked good this year. Kansas State, I really like. I think Kansas State.
They're always just
I think they can even they're the type of team to go toe to toe with Oklahoma.
They always do. Even when Oklahoma's really good.
Right. I mean, they're a really well coached team. But so is Oklahoma State. So I'm a man. I'm taking Oklahoma State.
I wish I could agree with you on that one, but it's too many points.
Fair.
Next up, Nebraska at Michigan State. Michigan State's 4-point favorites, over under 52.5. I think people are giving too much credit to Nebraska for keeping that game close.
Yep.
They lost to Illinois, and Illinois has been terrible the rest of the year.
Michigan State's really good.
And Michigan State's really good. They had a really good week one win against Northwestern. And last week they go down to Miami in a tough environment and blew them out. Their running attack's really good. Their defense is good. Their quarterback's playing as well as he needs to. I love that -4. I don't see Nebraska coming on the road and beating Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely fair. I hate this bet. I mean, I agree with you on Michigan State. But Nebraska's defense has looked really, really good, and Michigan State's offense has looked really, really, really awesome. I know, like, a lot of people are drawing comparisons to that quarterback to Kirk Cousins, the Michigan State guy. I don't know if I would go as like that far.
Yeah.
But I like Michigan State here at 4.5. They're a solid team. I'm just not going to overthink this one.
Okay. And the last game we're going to talk about, West Virginia at Oklahoma. Oklahoma is down to a 16.5-point favorite. Over-under is at 55.5. So this game is confusing. Oklahoma, everyone, I mean, not everyone, I'll say, it was my lock that they were going to cover. They didn't. It's one of those games where we watched everyone was watching last week. They saw them struggle against Nebraska. So the obvious pick here is West Virginia to cover the 16.5 points, which is a big margin, especially after West Virginia went on the road and had a pretty good win last week.
Did you watch that game?
I followed it on the ESPN app, but I didn't watch it. I had some other games on. But I think it's just so obvious to pick West Virginia that I'm going to pick Oklahoma. They're really good. I still believe that. Their offense is good. Their defense is better than it usually is under Lincoln Riley. It's one of those games where it's like you eventually are going to get wrong on Oklahoma, and it's what week are they going to finally turn it around and hit their stride.
Right.
And it's just picking which week that's going to be. And I think this game, I think it's a night game in Oklahoma. It's a great environment down there. West Virginia, I'm not very high on this year. So I'm going to pick this game to be the game they get right. Definitely on my lock again. Will not be picking them as a lock, but I do like them.
I think
minus 16.5.
Right. Like I think Vegas just read my mind during this game. I think what's going to end up happening for the first 3 quarters, West Virginia's going to be within one possession of Oklahoma.
Confirmed 6:30 kick, so it'll be a night game at Oklahoma.
Okay, cool. But I think Oklahoma's just going to turn up in the fourth quarter and stop playing around. I like Oklahoma. I like Oklahoma a lot here in this pick. But when I was talking to my roommate Nick Landon, he told me to take West Virginia, which is like, okay, well, now I don't feel good about anything. So I'm gonna take West Virginia. I'm not gonna feel confident about it by any means. The spread's just too big. It's too big.
Yeah. And I can see, like I said originally, I think everyone's going to be on West Virginia. And I think when the entire public's on something like that, it's the time they're just going to flip the switch and go crazy on them. So this is my pick 'em for the week. I think they're going to flip the switch and show that they're a top 10 team. So those are the games we want to go in depth on. And now we're going to just read off the cards quick. For my card, I have Liberty minus 6.5 against Syracuse. Fresno State minus 30.5 against UNLV. After watching UNLV, they're one of the worst teams in college football. Fresno State's also awesome. So, Notre Dame plus 6.5 against Wisconsin. Army minus 7.5 against Miami, Ohio. Miami, Ohio is ranked 88th in rushing yards against triple option. It's at Army, so easy. Mississippi State plus 2.5 against LSU. Texas Tech. Texas over 16.5, Texas Tech plus 6.5, SMU plus 8.5, UMass Coastal under 66.5. I think Coastal's a really good defense. They're going to shut down UMass. They'll probably score 45 themselves, but I don't think UMass covers the other 21 points. Iowa minus 23.5 against Colorado State. They have another home game against a bad team. I think they roll over this team again like they have been the last couple of weeks. Louisville minus 2.5 against Florida State. Iowa State minus 6.5, Baylor, NC State plus 10.5 Clemson, Rutgers plus 20.5 Michigan, Rutgers Michigan under 49.5. I think it's going to be a defensive battle. I think it's a lot of, like I said earlier, I think they're going to keep it close, so I don't think they're going to let Michigan put up 60 points again.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Michigan's quarterback, I don't think is very good. My dad's a big Michigan fan, so he watches all the games, and he's been saying that they're not a very good quarterback. So we'll see if he can step up. I have Florida minus 20.5 against Tennessee. Florida looked really good last week against Alabama. Tennessee's not very good. I think they're pissed they lost that game. They're going to come out really with their hair on fire and just give it to Tennessee pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
Texas A&M minus 4.5 against Arkansas. K-State plus 6.5 against Oklahoma State. Michigan State minus 4 against Nebraska. Oklahoma minus 16.5 versus West Virginia. I'm back on North Carolina minus 12.5 against Georgia Tech. They covered for me after losing me in week 1. They've covered 2 weeks in a row. Georgia Tech's one of the worst teams in the ACC. I think they're going to roll through them. Sam Howell, look for a big day. New Mexico State plus 17.5 versus Hawaii. Hawaii on the road. I always just fade that as a general rule. Hawaii is a terrible road team. UTEP minus a half point against New Mexico. UTEP's actually one of the better teams in Group 5. Cal plus 7.5 against Washington. Cal has been pretty good this year, and like we were talking about the Michigan game, I think Washington is awful. So 7.5, I like them to cover that. BYU minus 22.5 against USF. South Florida, I've been fading them pretty much all year, and it's been paying off big time, so I'm going to keep doing it. BYU's looked awesome so far this year. I think they roll through USF. Nebraska, Michigan State, under 52. I think it's going to be, like we said, 2 really good defensive teams. 52 seems pretty high for the over-under. I think Michigan State will try to run the ball a lot, which eats clock pretty fast. Illinois, Purdue, under 53.5. This is a gross game. Illinois and Purdue, just 2 gross teams, but I love the under so much, 53.5.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
Brett Bielema just going to try to run the ball the whole game. Purdue lost Rondale Moore last year, so their offensive firepower is limited. Moving on to some Pac-12 games, got Oregon State plus 11.5 against USC. USC is kind of in a weird spot right now, coming off the loss of their head coach. I like Oregon State this year. They have a pretty good quarterback. Been rolling with him. Arizona State, look for them to bounce back and cover 14 against Colorado. I think Herm Edwards, after a loss, I think he's going to come out playing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Colorado lost to Minnesota like 40-0. So they're bad. They're really bad. Arizona State's at home. Look for them to bounce back in this one. And my lock of the week, Western Michigan minus 2.5 against San Jose State. San Jose State is a pretty bad football team. Western Michigan's one of the better Group of 5 schools like we were talking about. They had a big win last week at Pittsburgh, who I think actually is a pretty good ACC school with a good returning quarterback. So that win really impressed me. I kind of watched the end of that game because I didn't think Pittsburgh was going to lose. But Western Michigan looked really good. Coming back home, getting the San Jose State team that is not very good. 2.5 points, really close spread. Love that. So that's going to be my lock of the week. Want to just roll through your card?
Yeah, absolutely. Should I start with my lock or just save it for the end?
Save it for the end.
Perfect. All right. So I got Liberty versus Cuse. I'm taking Liberty. And then I have Fresno State versus UNLV. I'm taking Fresno State. Notre Dame against Wisconsin. I'm going to be taking Wisconsin. I don't love that pick, but my heart isn't in the right place with Notre Dame at this time. I like Army against Miami of Ohio. Army looked really, really, really good against UConn. Just one of those last if Army has the ball in that last drive, chances are they cover.
It was a tough cover.
It was tough. I also really like Mississippi State over LSU. LSU's just looked flat. Texas Tech over Texas. SMU over TCU. I'm going to stay away from the Western Michigan San Jose State game. I just don't know enough about Western Michigan. In the Maryland-Kent State game, 14.5. I love that spread. I'm going to take Kent State. I know Maryland's pretty good this year. I think Kent State is the type of team to kind of run with Maryland. I know you hate this pick. We were talking about this last night. But I'm going to ride with my boys at Kent State. Iowa versus Colorado State. I like Iowa a lot here. Louisville versus Florida State. I like Louisville a lot. ISU versus Baylor. I like ISU a lot. NC State versus Clemson. I was kind of thinking about this when you were going through your picks here, if I was going to go back on Clemson. But I'm just going to stick with NC State. And then Rutgers, Michigan. Greg Schiano. Can't pass that up. Kansas versus Duke. Gonna go with our boy Patty A. Gonna take Duke on this one. Hate that pick.
I hate that pick too.
Hate it.
16.5 is a lot of points for a really bad Duke team. Kansas is so bad as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just an ugly game. I had Kansas to cover originally, but I can't bet on Kansas.
Best case scenario is 30-13.
Yeah.
Dude. And also I just kind of want KU to lose. So that's just a little better start right there. K-State versus Oklahoma State. I'm a fucking man. Don't really need to go into more into depth in that one. Michigan State, Nebraska. I'm taking Michigan State. Love Michigan State. I love this pick probably too much, which probably means Nebraska's going to cover here. Oklahoma versus Western Michigan or West Virginia. I'm going to ride with Oklahoma here. What did I say before? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure I took West.
I think you took the points. West Virginia.
Yeah, I'm gonna fuck it. I mean, I really don't know on this game. I'm gonna take West Virginia. That game against Virginia Tech just confused me. It just threw a wrench in my whole idea of what I thought West Virginia was this year. I'm gonna stay away from UNC, Georgia Tech. UNC is literally just ISU, but in the ACC, literally impossible to bet with. So, I mean, I know you're hitting well on them. I'm afraid to bet with them as of right now. And then I'm going to take UTEP versus New Mexico. I like UTEP a lot. I've actually seen way too many games of UTEP this year that I've wanted to, but I've just kind of fell into that situation. I watched the Illinois game, and Illinois just looked like garbage that game. I couldn't tell if that was UTEP actually being a good football team or Illinois. Combo, yeah.
Combo.
And then I love this pick against Cal and Washington. I think Washington's really bad. I'm probably falling in love with Cal too much here. I don't think Cal's as bad as they have been years previously. I don't even think they're. I'd honestly probably say they're a middle of the pack Pac-12 team right now.
They almost beat TCU in the road, like we talked about. So,
Right,
yeah,
right.
Pretty good team.
And then I really want to take BYU, USF. I really want to take BYU there. I really like BYU this year, but I'm just going to leave that one off my card. My lock of the week, though, is Western Kentucky, Indiana. I'm going to take Western Kentucky.
Hilltoppers.
I love Western Kentucky. Great, well-coached, non-Power 5 team. And Indiana, ever since I saw them week 1, I've just been like, screw this team. I hate them. And that's I guess that's my picks this week.
Sounds good. So we both got some pretty big cards. Be tweeting and putting those out. So make sure to go check them out.
Do you know what time you're planning on putting those out?
We'll see. I'm going to try to stagger the shows this week. I know in the past I've put them out at the same time, but I think it's a lot to ask people to watch. College football, NFL, it's like big shows. So probably try to put college football one out since we have Friday games on it. I'll put that one out tonight during the Thursday night football game, and then probably put my NFL one out Friday or Saturday. So expect to see us tonight. A Thursday.
Yeah.
But yeah, so have a good weekend, and thanks for watching.